Welcome to Rewatch-and-Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Season 1, Episode 8, The March to Freedom. Episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happens in the episode. So the episode begins with a group of settlers who had left their original village in order to find a place without war, and they met a man named Belus who offered to lead them to Caledon, where they would be promised a life of peace and a place to start over. Alongside them are two immigrants, Oilan and Cyrus, who are a couple, but Cyrus is worried at the fact that they are all unarmed and they're being led out in the open on a beach. And his worries soon prove to be well-founded, as it turns out Belus is actually a slave trader and has been leading them into a trap, and horses with all of his gang members come along the beach and everybody is rounded up and captured. We then move on to where Hercules has come home to visit his mother, who has tricked him into going to the market to sell some grain. And while he's at the market to sell the grain, an older woman offers to buy the grain and him for 400 dinars, but gets talked down to 200 dinars just for the grain. And as he's taking the 200 dinars, he and Aeolus, who's also in the village bringing his pig to the butcher, find themselves kind of overhearing the slave market, and Hercules, being the good guy he is, does not like the slave trade, and so even though Aeolus tells him, like, you're not going to end the slave trade here today, Hercules, he still goes in and sees everyone being sold off, and then the last one to be sold off is Oilan, and of course, because she's a woman, she's more vulnerable, and the type of slavery she was being sold into was very unsavory, and so he and Aeolus combine forces to buy her for $400, and then they let her go free. However, once she leaves, Hercules notices some thugs noticing her and leaving as well, so he then follows behind, and sure enough, Oilan ends up being attacked, and he basically offers to help her once he finds out that she's going to Libya to basically save her lover Cyrus from the slave trade, who bought him, and they bought him basically to be lion food at some animal games. So they then start to journey together, and at first she doesn't trust him and is kind of standoffish, but then they share a moment over a meal, and later she explains that she was actually a princess, but her mother wasn't favored by her father. As a result, she ended up being exiled from the province that she had been a princess in, and that Cyrus was formerly an acrobat in her father's court, and he had saved her from her loneliness. And Hercules kind of parallels that to, having a father who is the god who obviously did not favor his mother, and then, he's, well, not exiled, but, he's not a god himself, he's on Earth, and then, she asks him, if anyone was able to cure his loneliness, and he said someone used to, which of course was his dead wife and children. So he understands how she feels about Cyrus, and even though they're from different places, they have the same sort of family life and history of a sort, which bonds them further. But unbeknownst to them, Cyrus manages to escape from his captors, not before he's told that Hercules bought his girlfriend, and so he then runs all the way back to Hercules' home village and is like, where's Hercules? I need to kill him because I need my lover. And he's told that he missed them on the road, so he goes back the way that he came and does manage to see Oilan and Hercules is hugging her in comfort because she's so worried about Cyrus. And he understands that because, of course, he used to be married in a similar situation. Like I said, they've bonded. And so Cyrus attacks Hercules. He and Oilan then head off, but then they're once again attacked by the slavers, captured, And Hercules, after climbing back up the cliff he was knocked off of by a giant log, basically runs up to Cyrus, who's at the end of the line, and basically is like, "You owe me an apology," before he rips off Cyrus's chains, throws the keys to Oilan at the front of the line, and they start to free all the other slaves, fight all the bad guys. In the end, of course, the slaves are freed, the bad guys are defeated, and Belus gets his due comeuppance as Hercules brings him back to the village, where he sells him to the woman who offered him 200 dinars to spend some time with her, and she pays him $400, so he gets his money back, and the slave trader is basically karma, do unto others as you'd have done unto you, as it would be. And then, Hercules and his mother offers to hold the wedding for Oilan and Cyrus at her house, and Hercules, as a wedding gift, because he sees so many parallels with them and how much they love each other and the lengths they would go for each other, offers to give them his former land that he had with his wife as their wedding gift. And we see him talking to the gravestones about how, they'll, like, a couple like that deserves a place where they can be happy, like they were happy there, and that they'll be having tons of children, which will then be able to play with, their children and fill the place with joy again. And it's a very sweet moment. He gets a little bit more closure, knowing, that his land is in the hands of this very loving couple, with a love story that, again, parallels his own to a certain extent, before he then leaves. And that is what happened in this episode. So now that we've been reminded about what happened, we'll now rank the episode first on our mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. And the mostly objective rank values, we have our single episode supporting character introductions, and of course we have Oilan and Cyrus, the couple. Then we have Belus the slave trader and his main goon, Mudo, and that's worth 4 points. Then we have the supporting relationship development, which I felt that the love story between Oilan and Cyrus and the amount of development that went into it in this episode, and, how the episode ended with them going to be married, starting a family where Hercules started his family, and this connection that they felt, I definitely thought that it was worth it, even though it was only in one episode, that it gets some extra points. So that's +2 for the supporting relationship development, the love story between Oilan and Cyrus. And then last, we have our multi-season main character development, which is Hercules gifting his former land to Oilan and Cyrus to start their families, while also, in a sense, through talking to the gravestones, getting some closure for that as well, knowing that the land is in good hands with people that he respects who, again, have a love story that is meaningful and similar to his own. And then, unfortunately, that does give us 10 points, but then, unfortunately, we do have the negative messaging or behaviors, which takes 2 points for the slave trade existing. I think anybody could accept that that is a negative message and behavior. And then the second -2 that I took was the biting of the hand that feeds you. Essentially, Cyrus, basically, he decides, because of what a slaver told him, that Hercules is, sleeping with his girlfriend, and, he then throws Hercules off a cliff, resulting in him getting recaptured alongside Oilan. And Oilan even tells him, like, he was helping me to find you. He is not like the slavers, like, you did a bad thing here. And basically, he bit the hand that fed them. The person trying to save them, he ended up harming, but it ended up working out in the end because Hercules doesn't hold grudges because he is a good guy. But I just think, like, as I said with the slave trader, do unto others as you would have done unto you. I feel like if somebody is being very kind to you, you should be kind to them too, and not throw them over a cliff by hitting them with a giant log trap. So, ultimately that does leave this as a 6 out of 10 episode. And so our season 1 rankings so far, we have in first The Wrong Path, As Darkness Falls, Pride Comes Before a Brawl, The Road to Caledon. This episode comes in 5th place, The March to Freedom. Then we have Ares, The Festival of Dionysus, and Eye of the Beholder. Now, I liked this episode. The love story got to me. I thought it was a very sweet love story. I thought it was really nice how they took the time to develop the characters, their backstories, their story of falling in love, the lengths that they would go to for that love, then paralleling it to Hercules' love, and then the happy ending, where they're going to be living on his land, starting a family of their own, where his was bringing back joy to this place that was filled with tragedy. Right near where his mother lives, so she'll be able to be there. They can be friends. When he comes home to visit his mother, he could visit them if he wanted to. They even say they'll name their first son Hercules, which is adorable. I just thought that the love story was really great, how everything worked out in the end. Unfortunately, like I said, the slave trade is unfortunate in any situation, but it is historically accurate, and so you can't really do anything about that. It's historically accurate. It's taking place in a historical time period. So bound to come up at some point. But in this case, in this episode, all the slaves ended up freed. The slave traders got their comeuppance, which again, I really liked that whole karmic where he was selling people into slaves. So then his punishment, once he was defeated, was to be sold himself, which I thought was a great karmic punishment moment. And overall, I don't really think there was anything I specifically disliked about the episode. It had a lot of action in it with them fighting. The way Cyrus, because he was an acrobat, fought was really visually entertaining. Lucy Liu, who played Oi Lan, obviously very good at martial arts. So, those fight scenes were also really great. The time, again, that they took for the relationships and building up those relationships made you care about the characters, even though they're only in one episode. They managed to make you care about the characters. And honestly, from watching a bunch of other shows, that is rare. A lot of shows really fail to connect you to characters that are only existing in one episode. I don't know if because they're one episode characters, they don't put in that kind of effort, but I really appreciated that in this episode they did that. They put in the effort to flesh out the characters, to give them character arcs, and to make you care about them, wish for their happy ending, and be very happy when they got their happy ending. So, all of that to say, I gave it a 9 out of 10. Wasn't perfect, but it was very close and very, again, a sweet, very sweet episode, which is why in first place is The March to Freedom, then As Darkness Falls, Eye of the Beholder, Pride Comes Before a Brawl, The Festival of Dionysus, Ares, The Wrong Path, and then in 8th is The Road to Caledon. And now we come to our series ranking so far, and we have our mostly objective ranking, currently sitting at 50 out of a possible 130 for Season 1, and then the personal ranking for Season 1 at 54 out of a possible 130. But with that, we've now rewatched and ranked Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, Season 1, Episode 8, The March to Freedom. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.